feet undergo the same aging process as the face. They wrinkle, they lose plumpness, and that's why some clinics do fillers for feet.
So yeah, basically take care of your feet as you would your face. I'm Horea, a four-time entrepreneur who knows how brave you have to be to start your own venture. So I'm talking to women entrepreneurs, creatives, and experts to understand what it really takes to do things your own way. Welcome to Ocean Can Drive, the podcast where we have brave conversations about dreams, challenges, and trade-offs to help you take the next step on your unique journey to building something meaningful. Let's get into it. Simone, you're the founder of the Footlift clinic in London.
Yeah.
And what I love is that you're really vocal about raising awareness around the topic. You've written in many publications, and your work is at the intersection of foot health, but also prevention. So I'm very excited to have this conversation with you today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great, and I'm very happy to be here.
So on today's episode, we're going to talk all things foot health and some of the biggest myths around what women are told about their feet. Is the way we walk that revealing? Because every appointment at a physio or a podiatrist, or it starts with you walking up and down the corridor as a patient. And I'm always like, is it that simple? Is it that obvious? So what can you actually tell from just the way we walk?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a podiatry point of view, if somebody's coming in with a specific foot issue, the first thing we'll do is look at them stand and walk. And it can reveal many different things, not just related to the foot and ankle, but if somebody's got back pain or lower back pain, they might swing the hip out a little more. If there's a limb length discrepancy, it may cause a bit of curvature in the spine. They may lean to one side. So it's really good to have a good picture and an image in the notes of exactly how somebody is walking. At the Footlift London clinic, what we do is we have a look at the client walking with their shoes and also without their shoes. And quite often there are positive changes in the gait cycle, i.e. a straighter back when the shoes are off. So that's really interesting, and that allows us to then manage the case more effectively. So you can tell a lot through the way that clients walk.
And when you say the gait cycle, what does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So during the gait cycle is basically the way that you walk. So we have different stages of walking. We have forefoot loading, toe off in podiatry language. Then we go into a swing phase as we move over to the other leg. And then we do something called, walk and Trendelenburg. And it's just basically different stages of walking.
I also think it's really crazy what you just said, that, the walk can change or the issue can even correct itself when we remove our shoes, because that just shows how many of us are walking around with the wrong shoes that are just not helping us.
Absolutely. And shoes can sometimes, particularly shoes that have loads and loads of shock absorption, not enough support at the forefoot, not wide enough, we end up compensating. We end up sometimes limping because of footwear. And I know that women can relate to that. So the footwear is very, very important. And the reason why there's an improvement in the gait cycle and the walking pattern when you take the shoes off is because you can feel the ground a little more. Yeah.
But just to begin with, what are some of the most common issues that people come to you for?
Yeah, so at the Footlift London clinic, we see an array of different issues. Anything could walk through the door. So we're a high-risk foot clinic as well. But I'd say the most common are corns and callus, so pressure, basically. Ingrown nails, which can often lead to infection if it's not treated properly, and also heel pain. And that could be caused by a condition called plantar fasciitis or plantar fasciopathy if it's been there for a long time. We also see people that are complaining of itchy feet, Achilles issues as well if they've been running a lot, and many different things associated with ball of the foot.
And so what does a healthy foot look like?
We often look for circulation first of all. So when you come into the clinic for the first time, we'll use a Doppler ultrasound to have a listen to the quality of blood and oxygen being carried around the feet. So we're looking for a good rhythm of that and good blood supply. We're looking for the nerves to be nice and healthy. Can you feel light touch? And also, more simple terms, we're looking at the way that the foot looks. Are there any cracks? Are there any open wounds? There's none of those things if the feet are pretty hydrated. There's good circulatory flow. The nerves are working properly. And then we would class that as a healthy foot.
I remember when we did the light touch exercise or test with me. Yeah. And I think at some point I was thinking it was the right foot when it was the left foot, or vice versa, which is just crazy. So why does that happen? What's happening in the brain or the foot?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why we do that test. So quite often, if there's an ankle injury, sometimes your brain doesn't really know like where you are in space. Even though we're touching the right foot, you may feel it on the left. And that's because there's been a bit of damage to the nerve through rolling the ankle, something as simple as that. But because of that report and that result, we will always advise, try not to walk around barefoot because you may not be able to feel it. Let's get the foot stronger. And then we always do that test again in about 3 months' time to make sure you're okay.
And so what are some of the early signs that people tend to dismiss, but that you see as really important indicators to, just start thinking about your foot health?
Yeah, absolutely. So we see a lot of people that have arthritic changes in the joints. So people can come in and say, oh, I'm getting bunion pain or my toes are changing. And that's quite often because they're wearing shoes that are a little bit too tight. And that's changing the way that the bones are. So I'd say early signs of, slight changes in the feet always start in the toes. Also, sometimes people say, my feet feel bigger or they're getting wider. It's not actually because of that. It's because the arch is flattening. And also, if there's been an ankle injury or something like that and it hasn't properly been rehabilitated, it can cause the foot to slap. It can do loads of different things to the entire body.
I just want to pause and reflect on how the foot is connected to the full body chain, like from the ground up. Do you feel that when people come to you, it's almost like they have body pain in different parts and they almost address everything else before addressing the foot? Or is that just a misconception that I have?
No, you're absolutely right. The feet get neglected, like they just do. And it's only when something's wrong with them that it can seriously affect your quality of life. So we often don't just focus on the feet, we ask about the back. I work with a fantastic osteopath, and if there's any back issues, they'll go straight to Jonathan. And actually having a look at everything is really good practice. But quite often, if somebody's getting lower back pain and they have 2 different arch heights, I'll be able to help them with that. But taking a full history is really important. But you're absolutely right. The feet just get so neglected. And we look after our faces more than we do our feet, and it should be pretty equal.
I think now that you say that, I want to go back to the name of the Footlift Clinic. So why did you decide to create it, and what's in the name?
I love getting facials done. I absolutely love it. I was living in the Middle East for years. It's very, very common to get a facial done. And obviously working as a podiatrist, we were so busy. And I wanted to create something for the feet, which was not just a podiatry treatment, because quite often we think of podiatry as, oh, I'm in pain, so I'm going to go and see a podiatrist. But no. The Footlift is about a complete fusion of health and beauty. So in facials, it's a nice process. They prep your skin, they spray your skin. We do the exact same thing for feet. So it's a complete overhaul of the feet. Your feet feel completely rejuvenated after. And the name comes from non-surgical facelift, basically. And that is the Footlift.
What is the difference between a salon pedicure and a medical pedicure, or a pedicure that would happen with you, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So salon pedicures, I think a lot of us have been to them, and the first thing they do is they soak the feet. So the biggest difference between the two is one is carried out by a podiatrist that studied foot health. We can use things like scalpels. Whereas beauty therapists, as amazing as they are, they're able to cosmetically look after the feet. So we can diagnose and treat during our pedicures. Whereas in a medical pedicure, we can address things like ingrown nails. Even if you don't have any of that stuff, we'll be working on dry skin. That's the main difference.
Is that important?
It is important. So when you wet the skin, actually not only are you introducing the risk of bacteria and fungus, but actually you can't do an exfoliation, a proper exfoliation, because the feet are wet. So quite often you're moving lots of hard skin around, and maybe in 7 to 10 days, your feet are feeling dry again. During the medical pedicure or the foot lift, hard skin callus is removed. You'll see all of the dust during our treatments, and you'll see everything come away, and your feet just feel softer and more hydrated for longer. So foot health practitioners and podiatrists can do medical pedicures because we use the scalpel and things like that. Yeah.
So talking about soft feet, is it possible to have soft feet? I feel like it often feels impossible, right? No matter how many creams or how many pedicures you get, whether at a podiatrist or at the salon, it feels like they can never be kept as soft as they are in those initial moments. But also, are feet supposed to be that soft, or are they supposed to be a little bit more, rugged?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, well, first of all, the skin on our feet is up to 12 times thicker than anywhere in the body. And that's so that we can withstand things like pressure. We have fat pads in our feet. So naturally, the skin is a different texture to anywhere on the body. But yes, they do get more dehydrated, but it depends on your skin type. It's not good to over soften the feet if they're not naturally soft. So with the different skin types, you have different textures, but to over soften them with things like acids and these masks, I'm really against, because actually your feet need a little bit of substance to them, and there has to be a bit of structure, because otherwise you'll just get wounds every single day. So
they're meant to be that way.
They are supposed to be that way, but it's not normal to have loads of callus and pressure points. That can actually affect the foot health very negatively.
And I also want to talk about nail polish. I mean, most of us wear nail polish at some point or another. Some people even wear nail polish all the time. I want to talk about whether that's fine to a certain extent, or are we unknowingly creating potentially long-term issues?
Gels for toenails, I do not recommend at all, because it causes, you basically leave it on for a long time. Unfortunately, it does include lots of harmful chemicals such as toluene, and that removes keratin and layers of the nail. Quite often as well, it causes the nail bed to sweat, and that is what can lead to fungal nail infections, actually. So nail polish, regular nail polish with a good base and top coat, should be treated as makeup. So you take your makeup off at night if you're going out and you want them to look really nice, just paint them with regular polish, because actually if you use regular nail polish, i.e. not gel, it will last just as long. But I would recommend taking it off, because keratin loss and dehydration. But there are loads of like healthier nail polishes now available on the market. Yeah, so nail polish always instead of gels, but also coming in for a medical pedicure and just letting your nails breathe. I mean, you've had one of our treatments. The nails look amazing after. You don't want to put anything on them because they look so clean. So yeah, during the winter, you don't really need to put polish on. Just let the nails breathe, apply oils to them. Yeah.
I'm actually genuinely curious about this. So I have a question to the audience. Drop in the comments, yes or no, if you've ever had a medical pedicure, because honestly, I had never really thought about it before. And now I'm like, how did I go on for so long without doing this? So drop a yes or a no on whether you've had one before or not. Now let's talk about shoes. How can we help people figure out what shoes to wear and what to really look out for when they're choosing?
So I always say that the back of a shoe should be nice and hard and have a good amount of structure. Okay, so your rear foot should not be allowed to drift or move, and that can actually cause injury. So something that has a nice hard back, I really advocate for ASIC trainers. I think they're brilliantly made. And also something that is wide at the front, so avoiding things that are too narrow. I love to recommend a Velcro strap or a lace. And I also like to go for something that doesn't have that much cushioning. You don't want so much shock absorption because it really does affect the arch, and it can actually tire the foot muscles. So a nice hard back, something that's nice and wide at the front with a lace or a Velcro strap. So those are the things that you should look for in a shoe. If you're perhaps going out to a dinner, I mean, I really like boots. I've come in boots today. It's protecting my ankle. There's a zip, there's a lace. It's a nice hard back. I'm fine with that. If you want to wear a pair of heels, just make sure that you're going out to dinner in them, that you're not standing in them all the time, because that affects the stability. But mainly people should be living in trainers, basically. Yeah. But I know what you mean, and I think it's probably the materials. And so breathable materials are actually much better than, really synthetic hard materials. Yeah.
So trainers and sneakers, so we should be living in those. Heels, we can wear them, but not too long.
I wrote about this in the Mirror when the Barbie film was coming out. They should be solid, they should be wide, and they should also have a strap. So a heeled boot, I mean, that's not going to do any harm as long as you're not walking 10,000 steps in them. But anybody that has an injury, an Achilles injury, a forefoot injury, should not be in a heel. You should be in minimal footwear, such as a trainer. I want to mention something about working out as well. If you're carrying loads of weights when you work out, you should opt for barefoot shoes. Why? Because you can really feel the ground, and actually you can get thrown off if you're in very, very, very cushioned and supportive trainers, and it will just feel a bit more comfortable when you're lifting. There are loads of different brands. It's basically minimal cushioning, minimal shock absorption, and they're always wide at the front. Also the back of them is pretty solid as well, but it just means that your feet aren't being compressed, and they're not as tight at the front. So that's what I recommend for going to the gym. Takes a while to adjust. So because we've been wearing shoes all the time with loads of shock absorption and cushioning, when you go to a minimal shoe, you're feeling the ground a lot, so your feet are having to work a little harder. But that's why I do recommend them, because that's when the bones, work best, when there's not anything kind of pressing up on them, or there's not loads of support. So they can ache a little bit. I wouldn't recommend a barefoot shoe for really long distance marathon runs, but wearing them and introducing them, on a weekly basis is really good practice.
I want to go back to what you said about heels. So not doing 10,000 steps. You will hear women say that they feel so comfortable in their heels. So what is happening there? Like when you've worn heels for such a long time, how does that change? Like, what does it change in your body that you all of a sudden feel more comfortable wearing that than a flat shoe?
Essentially what has happened there is the Achilles has been shortened a little bit from being in that heeled position all the time. And so that is what has happened. And it's a bit of a risk because, of course, when you get slightly older, you're not going to really want to wear heels all the time, particularly if you're at home. So if that happens, then what I would recommend are some exercises just to kind of bring the feet down a little bit. But yes, you are right. If you have a higher arched foot naturally, and you've been wearing heels, then you have shortened the Achilles, and that's actually due to a calf issue, and that's the reason why people feel more comfortable in them.
What about flats, sandals, summer shoes?
I don't mind sandals at all, as long as they're wide and there's a strap to at least support the ankle. Why I'm not a fan of and what I don't recommend, because it can cause injury, are flip-flops, so between the toes. Anything that goes between the toes, it's not good for your back because you're having to grip all the time with them. And also it can cause the skin between the toes to break. So I don't recommend anything that goes in between the toe. So if you want to put a slider on that goes across the metatarsals or the ball of the foot, absolutely fine. But anything going in between the toes, I'm not a fan of.
But so what about the socks with the split toes?
They're absolutely fine because it's a sock, and we sell them in the clinic because that isolates the big toe joint. And it's compression, and actually your big toe can actually move a lot easier. So because you're not having to grip that, it's just going on the foot. That's absolutely fine.
Is there like a particular shoe type that is repeatedly linked to specific foot issues that people come to you for?
I've seen people that live in flip-flops because I used to live in the Middle East, right? And not only do they end up with lower back pain, but they also have reduced fat pads in their feet, and that's because of the constant gripping. There's also a hard callus that is in between the toes if you wear flip-flops for a prolonged time. But then equally heels, that can cause something called metatarsalgia. That's pain in the ball of the foot. Pointy shoes that can lead to arthritic changes in the big toe joints. So I can pretty much always tell. And also ill-fitting shoes as well. So if somebody is going for slightly tighter shoes and they're not big enough, you can get rub and marks on the outside of the toe. Sometimes there are permanent scars there as well. But yeah, you can definitely tell a lot from someone's footwear. And I just want to say as well that opting for a little bit more room in the shoe is really good. Why? Because our feet swell during the day. You want to make sure you have enough room so that there is no rubbing, particularly if you're going on hikes and things like that. You do need space.
But not. All right, so let's do a bit of myth busting. True or false? Breaking in shoes, normal and expected? Blisters and everything? Yes or no? No. Okay.
Absolutely not.
But so we all get them.
We all get them, yeah, and that's a big myth. No, if the shoe is the wrong fit, then it's going to cause blistering. So it means that it's not the right fit. If after the third time of wearing them, you're still getting, pain and blisters, that's not normal. If you go out for a run in a pair of trainers and you're running downhill, okay, it's normal to get some rub marks. But if you're really having, blisters and the skin is breaking repetitively every time you wear those shoes, then it does mean that it's not the right fit. But if you just put a normal plaster there, I recommend that for my runners that do their marathon runs, or if you're going to have to do a really long walk around London, absolutely just put a regular sterile plaster there if you feel that there's a pressure point.
Flat shoes are always better for your feet than heels. True or false?
Somewhat true. So ballerina pumps, I'm not a fan of those.
Why is that? I've always heard this.
Yeah, there's just basically there's no structure to the shoe. You may as well be walking barefoot. And quite often they have a narrow toe box. So your toes end up like crossing over. I can't tell you the amount of ankle injuries I've had from people wearing ballerina pumps in the clinic. So you just have to be careful with them. I don't mind if you wear those as slippers, but you shouldn't really wear them outside for long periods.
You wouldn't think people would have so many injuries from wearing ballerina.
Yeah.
Pedicure should be done on dry skin.
Yeah, that's true.
Hard skin should always be removed.
Well, it depends. So if that hard skin is a callus, then yes. So if it's actually thickened skin, it does need to be removed and exfoliated and moisturized, yes, because it then causes a pressure point. If the skin is just dry, we just need to exfoliate it with some foot filing and moisturizing. But if it's really, really hard and like you can feel it when you walk, it does need to be removed. But dry skin doesn't need to be removed. It needs to be exfoliated and moisturized.
Foot pain is just part of getting older.
Absolutely not true. So it's not normal if you're getting pain as you're older. It's an indication that there are poor biomechanics, something else is going on. You've been wearing the incorrect shoe, so it's not normal at all. I mean, yes, the feet actually undergo the same aging process as the face. It loses plumpness and things, and it's normal for anatomical changes, but you shouldn't necessarily be getting pain.
Okay, the last one that I'm so curious about, because I've heard so many women talk about this. Yeah. So I've heard that you go up a shoe size after pregnancy. Is that true? Because Literally, when I heard this the first time, I started thinking, oh my God, do I start buying my shoes like a size up now to make sure I can still wear them in
No,
5 or
of course.
10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. That is such a brilliant question. So it's true, but it's not that the foot has gotten bigger, it's that the arch has flattened. So during pregnancy, you have so many hormones that go through the body that soften everything. And quite often during pregnancy, particularly the last trimester, women opt for, ballerina pumps just because they want to feel comfortable. Actually, you should go for something with more structure because that will offer the arch a little bit more support and offloading. So yes, the feet do often get a little bit more splayed after pregnancy, but it's because the arches have flattened rather than them increasing in length.
But then can they go back?
Well, it does depend on the structure of the foot, but I mean, you can absolutely strengthen the foot, build up the muscles in the foot, and that's what we do. We get clients to heel walk, we get you to tiptoe walk. Let's get the foot a little bit stronger. So it just means that the foot is a little bit weaker when you notice splays like that.
So arch flattening essentially means that the muscles of the arch are getting weaker.
Yeah, so if you have noticed that your arches are dropping, it's because there's probably weakness, but people are born with, flat feet versus high arches. So to have flat feet is not wrong. But if you're noticing pain and changes because the arches are getting lower, then it does mean that something is going on and there's weakness, yeah.
For women who are pregnant or planning to be, what do you wish they knew earlier about foot health as a prevention?
I wish that women just knew that they shouldn't really be, sat in flip-flops whilst their, feet are swelling. You should be either in a compression sock or you should be wearing a trainer with a lace with a nice hard back, a running trainer, for example, whilst you're walking around, because that actually really does help the feet to feel a little bit lighter.
Even though it's counterintuitive.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And also foot strengthening exercises. So there's a really large amount of women that still exercise when they're pregnant, but we often forget about the feet. So doing some foot rolling exercises when you're pregnant, some tiptoe walks, some heel walks, and that's all really beneficial for maintaining the strength in the ankle.
And you just mentioned compression socks. Are those for everyone, and when should we be wearing them?
We sell a really, really good compression sock, as you know, in the clinic. They're ankle length, and actually if you're sat for most of the day in an office, your feet do swell. So at the back of the knee you have a very important pump. It's called the popliteal fossa. So if that's not moving around, you end up getting water retention in the feet, whether you're a man or a woman. So I do think actually all socks, if you went in a sports shop, there's a degree of compression there, and it is important for the arches and the feet and the ankle to be compressed to a degree. I don't recommend the really long compression socks, like that go past the knee, if you haven't been diagnosed them by a doctor. I mean, you don't really need those. For women, we have compression in a lot of our leggings. And that's really good. But yes, a little bit of tightness around the ankle in a compression sock, in the form of a compression sock, is really good. Yeah.
And that's for everyday use. And then what about long flights? I often hear that it can be quite helpful to wear longer compression socks.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are two different types. There's flight socks, which you can just get on the way to the airport in any health shop. And then there are, which are fine to wear if you're going on a really long flight, but actually what would be more beneficial and more comfortable is if you just wore a really good pair of leggings.
Now let's talk about running. I feel like the world is split into runners and non-runners.
Yeah, it's
people
true.
who think it's great, people who hate it. Yeah. From your perspective, is running for everyone?
No, it's not.
Okay. I feel someone
I mean, look, we're designed to run as humans and to walk because of quads and everything. But it does actually depend on your muscles. So we have loads of clients that have hypermobility. We have clients that have mobile joints, and then we have clients that have restricted joints. So it really does depend, and whatever your body type or whatever your preference, you should be building yourself up to long runs. So we could all probably run around the block for 10 minutes and that's fine. But really long runs, you have to train for them. Otherwise, unfortunately, sometimes you can have, life-changing injuries. So I see a lot of marathon runners, and it's the repetitive, force of running, which is great for the body, but actually it can be very traumatizing. So a running coach is a really, really good idea.
What is the biggest mistake you see people make when they start running?
Running with shoes that don't have a lace, or running in, say, something that is very, very thin and is not made for running.
So you do need some cushioning when you
need a little bit of cushioning. You need a little bit of support when you go for a run. Absolutely. And also sometimes people run with trainers that they've had for years because they're nice and soft, but actually you're at risk of kind of rolling over on the feet because the amount of terrain that trainer has adapted to, so it's not actually going to shock absorb anything.
So does that mean as a runner, you almost have to change your running shoes
regularly?
100%.
Yeah, you should change your running trainers at least every 18 to 24 months, depending on how many miles you put into them.
Is there such a thing as a perfect running shoe?
I think it depends on your style preference, but also your foot type. But again, I advocate for all of the ASIC trainers. I think they're brilliant. Whether I'm rehabbing an ankle injury or if I'm going running myself, a short run, by the way, then I will wear ASICs. And I do think that for the majority of the clients I see, that they work very well just because of their structure, nice and wide at the front. Minimal cushioning for certain styles as well, and a good amount of support. Yeah.
And now I want to go back to the beginning of the Footlift clinic. What I'm very curious about is coming from a medical background, which allowed you to set up your business during that time, but without, I guess, formal business education. How did you initially view entrepreneurship and like the idea of setting up your own business? Like, did that feel unfamiliar, intimidating? Yeah, what did you have to personally work through to establish yourself in the business space coming from a medical background?
I just took every day as it could. I mean, I'm a clinician first, and you kind of learn business, after that, even though I was managing a clinic previously. When you do it for yourself, I think the most important thing is to just come from a genuine place, be transparent with the clients, but it's quite daunting. Even this is going out of my comfort zone, and that's what I'm having to do. You just have to take the bull by the horns. And also, I just think speaking a lot about what you do, naturally that leads to people, and if you're passionate about what you do, you're genuinely passionate. And I think that comes across, in our clinics and between our podiatrists and our clients. People know that we're there to help. In terms of being an entrepreneur, I never thought I would be one. I just kind of fell into it, I suppose.
It just happened.
Even when you
Which
say
is the
it,
best
I'm like,
way, actually, because you didn't have this like moment of transition or like sacrifice or pivot. It just gradually happened.
It did.
Yeah.
And I'm all for like organic growth. I mean, we've been busy purely because of reputation, of people leaving good reviews, us being honest with clients, and it's word of mouth that got us really busy. We didn't really spend loads on marketing or anything like that. So I'm just really grateful that it appears to be working. Yeah.
And I actually want to talk about this because you really built something where there is a solid reputation. You have, quite a good amount of visibility that is organic, across press, across, different features. You're even now expanding beyond the UK, which is massive. Like, huge congratulations for that. So when did you realize, okay, this is working?
Do you know, honestly, this is during COVID. I was at my NHS job and my phone did not stop ringing. And I always just thought, you know, I'll do the NHS and I'll do a couple of days of private work. But after a year, that was not possible. I was having to leave my NHS job and I started to work at Third Space Medical. And I would have to go there in the evenings because I had a full list. I was like doing like 40 clients a day, like NHS and then privates. And I thought, actually, maybe I could reduce some NHS days. And that's when I figured out, actually, yeah, this is working and we can start to hire people and actually have our own space. And then I moved to Until, which is a great shared space to build your business the way you want to. They have amazing locations in Marylebone and Liverpool Street. That's when I realized it was really working, where we could set up anywhere and be busy. And then finally we moved to Cavendish Square. And that's our home now. So yeah, and it's going really well.
Yeah, that's a great address to call your home. Looking back, what are you most proud of in the business that you've built and the impact it's having on the people that come to you?
Okay, honestly, it's really nice doing this because I'm reflecting as well. I think it's our reviews on Google. Honestly, it's not just the fact that we're able to, you know, someone walks into our clinic in pain and we can have them pain-free. It's not only that, but it's the fact that people have taken the time to write about their experience. Somebody's Googled foot care. We've come up straight away because of our good reputation. And I am really proud of that. Like, we have over 150 positive reviews, which are all organic. And yeah, I am quite proud of that because then other people can see, actually, there is someone that can have a look at my feet. I don't have to feel embarrassed. That was what a new client said to us the other day. I saw on your Google reviews and I don't really feel embarrassed coming here because it's a proper clinic. So I think that's what we're quite proud of.
So talking about business, let's go into, let's say, the business questions. If someone is imagine someone doesn't know anything about this and they're just considering maybe opening a clinic and you're advising them. What is the business model of a clinic? You know, for example, how does the Footlift operate? What are the business considerations that you really have to think about, you know?
Yeah, you certainly have to consider things like cost. You have to figure out, am I going to start to build up slow? Am I going to, just rent a room somewhere? But I'd say aside from that, even before you think of setting up a premises, you need somebody to work with you. You need, a colleague, preferably in the same field as you, but that you trust to kind of build it with you, because burnout is a real thing. Yeah. And when you're having to do treatments, run the business, find a place, you can really get stressed. So definitely asking if somebody will go on the journey with you is really good. Finding a space, building up slowly, or then if you want to look at investment later on down the line, then you can. But I just think building things up slowly.
And I mean, there's also something else to think about when we're looking at your business. Yeah. The constraints and responsibilities that come from running a medical-led business that I guess most founders don't have to think about. So do you sometimes feel the medical pressure, like responsibility or pressure?
You have to keep, up to certain standards. You have to pay certain insurances. If you're a podiatrist, you're a member of the Society of Chiropodists and Podiatrists, so you are expected to keep up with CPD on top of everything else that you have to do. That's continuing professional development. And also legally, there's different things that you can and can't say. So there are loads of things that you have to think about. I've got a great colleague, Mary Chris, that does everything for us. She's always checking things. But medically, you do have to make sure you're on point, with everything even notes, yes, I run the business, but also I'm still a podiatrist. I still have to do my notes. So there are certain standards that you do have to keep on top of all the time, because of that, of that title. Yeah.
Simone, we're coming to the end of our questions, but we still have some fire questions.
Oh gosh, I love a fire.
Okay, so one thing about feet that would surprise most people.
Yeah, okay. Feet undergo the same aging process as the face. I think I said that before. Yeah. Exactly the same thing that happens to the face happens to the feet. They wrinkle, they lose plumpness. Shock absorption is a thing. You start to kind of walk on your bones if you're not taking care of them correctly. And that's why some clinics do fillers for feet. Did you know that?
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
So wait, what is this?
Yeah. So it's actually, there's evidence for it. So it's usually associated with fat pad loss for the forefoot. And you just put filler and Botox in the forefoot and it fills them. Yeah.
So yeah, basically take care of your feet as you would your face. One thing people do to their feet thinking it's helpful, but it actually isn't.
Filing your feet or taking a pumice stone to them in the shower is not helpful.
So when they're moist or wet, we should not be doing that.
Nice.
The biggest misconception about medical pedicures
is that it's going to hurt and we're going to use blades on your feet. It doesn't hurt at all. You're being, treated in a medical way, but it doesn't mean that you're going to come out with loads and loads of blood. It's actually, as you know, a very gentle experience, a very gentle treatment. Yes, it's even more gentle. I also just want to say that something doesn't have to be wrong with your feet to get a medical pedicure or the Footlift done. Anybody can come to us.
The hardest part of running a medical-led business that no one talks about.
Yeah, just keeping up with the standards and your continuing professional development. And then just making sure thankfully we've got a really good team, but making sure your team are all aligned on the whole medical, but beauty, in our case, aesthetic that we like to keep.
A founder myth you no longer believe.
You'll be successful no matter how much work you put in, I suppose. I think it might sound a bit negative, but that's not always true, because if what you're doing is not working and there's no need for it, then you may not be successful. You've been successful in trialing it, but then I think it's wise to try and put your skills into something else if it's not working.
Simone, thank you so much.
That was really fun. I love it. Can we do it again?
Yes,
like
anytime.
Now.
Again, oh my God, let's replay the thing. No, I don't think I can do that. Thanks for listening. Let's keep the wheels turning and the community growing. So make sure to subscribe. The bigger the channel, the bigger the guests we can bring you.